Namaste everyone, and welcome back home to the Trannabis kitchen at the LA headquarters. I am Chef Trannabis, aka Jamie London Wahlberg. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm super excited for this Trannabis pre-show, which is for Season 2, Episode 5. Later on at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and 9 p.m. Central Time, we are going to be welcoming on an awesome guest. We are going to have Neil Lequia of the Full Spectrum, and I cannot wait to talk about the LGBTQ AI2S+ community and how it links with cannabis, what the Full Spectrum is up to, and hear about Neil's story. First and foremost, let's go over what we are making, which is going to be a stuffed Portabello mushroom. This is going to be vegan, gluten-free, and dairy-free. Of course, because it's vegan. So ultimately, let's get into what's going in. So first and foremost, we are infusing our Portabello mushrooms with some fruit slabs. Shout out to Fruit Slabs. Thank you so much, as always, for sponsoring. This is an amazing product. If you aren't familiar with Fruit Slabs, you need to check them out. They have CBD and THC versions, so you can get them across the country, or THC depending on what state you are in, at a dispensary. These are vegan, kosher certified, organic, no sugars added, no preservative added, fruit leather. It's fruit and it's cannabis. So this is a product that you absolutely want to check out, and that is what's going to be infusing. We're going to put 5 milligrams of THC in each one. We are going with the Mango Maui Wowie, and the Mango Maui Wowies have a little bit of coconut with a mango base. So this is what they look like, and we just get to split that in half because that's 10 milligrams. Makes it really, really easy to dose whatever it is and have something that's already healthier as well, because we're not adding all these sugars and preservatives to it. So what's going into our Portobellos? So we have, first and foremost, our veggies. So we are going to use a little bit of some green zucchini, as well as a little bit of yellow pepper. We are going to use about a quarter of a tofu steak. I like to use a super firm. We are going with some cherry tomatoes. We've got 6 cherry tomatoes here. We have going on top our vegan mozzarella and cheddar cheeses. We have some nutritional yeast. For those who aren't familiar with nutritional yeast is used to create a nutty, cheesy flavor and texture. It's a really great seasoning when you're looking to have something that's vegan, have that cheesy and nutty flavor and consistency without using ingredients that would go against that. And then we have olive oil, about a tablespoon or 2. This is going to be to rub down our portobellos, as well as to cover over and mix in with our veggies. And then we have some paprika. We've got some Himalayan pink rock salt, and we've got some ground black pepper. So it's a super simple recipe. The first thing that we are going to be doing is we are going to be cleaning off our portobellos. So we're just going to wipe them down a little bit, clean out the underbelly so that all of this part is actually what's exposed. The reason I'm going with portobello mushrooms is because portobello mushrooms make it possible for you to really stuff a lot more in there. And with stuffed cap mushrooms, my personal opinion is you stuff as much as you can inside, and then it's a mound of food that's on top. So it's really going to be something that's explosive. And since I have finally set up the second version, since the first version broke, of my air fryer, this is what I'm going to be using. And on the vegetable setting, it's really going to take like 15 minutes or less for this to really cook, all the cheese to melt. That's what we're waiting for. If you're going to do it in the oven, you're probably going to want to do it at like 325, 350 degrees for about 5 to 10 minutes. So we are going to clean these out. So first and foremost, we're going to snap off. We're going to do some prep right now. Snap off our stems. Now, you can absolutely scrape out those gills. I'm going to be doing that, but we're also going to be wiping down the outside of the mushroom cap. I like to do that by simply just taking a little piece of paper towel. We're going to create a little bit of dampness here. Woo! Almost lost that. I did lose a chunk of that, unfortunately. it'll be okay. And so we're going to just gently wipe off the shell. Or the shell meaning actually a cap. I don't know why I'm saying shell. Technically it is a cap. And in doing this, it may have seemed like it was not necessarily dirty, but in fact it was. So we want to make sure that we are cleaning that off, because we don't want any dirt, and you really can't soak them unless you're going to marinate, because they're going to have a sponge reaction. So it doesn't need to be anything complicated at all. We're just cleaning off the shell, the cap. Gosh, I have to start doing that. All right. Now to take out the gills, we are going to take a little spoon, which I forgot to grab. And these are very gentle. And we want to make sure, of course, you can notice that these Portobellos are gentle in general. We want to be careful in scooping these out that we're not destroying it. So we're going to come on in here. I like to hold the mushroom into my palm, and then I just take my spoon and just very gently press and scrape out these gills. Now, ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to do this. For a stuffed mushroom, it's very useful to do this process of removing the gills, because then you have that much more depth and space to stuff your mushroom. And if there's any sorts of dirts and things, that's going to be held into these gills here. And the thing is, when you're doing also a stuffed Portobello mushroom, this is the vehicle. This is essentially where the plating is happening. So it's going to make it that much more pretty. You know, this is what it looks like at the end. And so sometimes, you know, with like little mushrooms, I usually don't clean out the gills. It really depends. But if you're doing something kind of gourmet, again, stuffing this. So again, we're just coming into the gills here. It's all this darker brown part that look like these gills. And we're just scraping those down. You know, I was really excited that Neil asked me to do a stuffed mushroom. We haven't done a stuffed mushroom on the show. We've stuffed bell peppers, we've stuffed squash. And right now, with the full moon in Cancer, that we're still sort of finishing that energy, as well as the retrograde in 3 planets. This is a time where I could really use some grounding, and I find that mushrooms, being the earthy and medicinal fungi that it is, I like to actually, welcome everyone, I like to actually utilize the earthiness of the mushroom to help ground me, to connect to the mycelium network that has such an intelligence. So at this point, we're going to be putting these aside because they are totally ready for us to begin. Before I even started, I had already sent Reiki to the room, the plant spirit, and the food, and to the show itself. We'll do this again at 7 p.m. Pacific time when we actually do the show itself. So now what we are going to do is prepare our veggies. So we are going to do a small dice. So we're going to cut our zucchini in half. We're going to come lengthwise at about 1.5 centimeters or so. And then we are coming widthwise. Now, how am I holding my cutting board steady? I'm holding my cutting board steady with a wet paper towel that I've placed underneath. You can use, of course, a typical towel. I find them to be too thick for these, and it's really rocky. So we're going to put these in here. Do not worry if your cuts are not that exact. It's something that's really going to be buried into all of this, you know, and unless you are cooking at a 5-star restaurant or you desire to be a perfectionist, which I don't, recovering perfectionist, you know, you really don't need to have that. This is ultimately what they need to be looking like, so that way it's going to, ultimately what we want is to fit it into the mushroom. Here comes our yellow pepper. I'm going to cut out this little fibrous section here, the knife cutting away from me. You always want to cut away from you for safety. That's going to help you into making sure that you are not slicing your fingers, as well as utilizing your knuckles to push this up against the knife. That's going to make sure that you don't actually lose any fingers, which are quite important, especially when it comes to cooking. Alright, same concept here. Loving that crunching noise. Hope you're getting a little bit of that ASMR. We're just going to put this here in our little container. Now, eventually, we are going to put all this into a bigger bowl to mix it all up with all of the ingredients before we actually put it in. So now here comes our cherry tomatoes. I wanted to use the cherry tomato because it's a really bright tomato. They're nice and small. We can just cut them in half and slice them down. And of course, tomatoes got a little bit of bounce and they've got a lot of water, so it's going to look more like a conical dice with a little bit of roundness. It's going to give a little bit of acidity, a little bit of color to our dish, which is going to pair very nicely with the earthiness. You know, for those who are familiar with the chakras and the colors that tend to be associated with them, red is the color of the root chakra, and the root chakra at our base here, right about at our hips area, this is where we ground. This is where we connect to earth. It's where we get our stability. And with the Cancer full moon, there's a lot of emotions to be had. It can feel destabilizing depending on how your chart is. Like, I noticed, I just figured this out kind of the other day because I had a very challenging full moon experience. My rising is in Cancer. And so I realized suddenly that whenever there's a full moon in Cancer, I feel like my world has turned upside down. And food, especially infused with cannabis, or even just having food and having cannabis together and doing so with intention, can really help you to reset, to connect, to ground. So this is something that we are doing together. It's also, you know, a great time to ground at the beginning of a new year. There's so much going on, everyone is setting up, and it's been a very destabilizing time for the last 2 years for everybody, right? Because of the pandemic. So it's ultimately going to be a dish that could be really great for everybody. And it's also a way of getting other colors into the dish. You know, we have the yellow and the yellow orangish of the cheese is, you know, the kind of like a mixture of the sacral and solar plexus. Our yellow and green. We got our green for the heart chakra. We've got our yellow for the solar plexus. It's also like color therapy is something that I've always been very interested in. You know, yellow is representation of joy, so and creativity. Alright, so now we are coming in to dice up our tofu. So again, we're going to start with these thin slices, and because this is of course thicker, we're going to cut it into thinner pieces first, like so, before we actually go to slice and dice them. That's going to help us because otherwise it would be really, really thick due to, of course, the thickness of tofu. And this is going to be awesome because we're going to be putting the tofu in with the other veggies to mix it up, and because tofu is a sponge, it's going to soak up all of those delicious flavors along the way. And that's what we're banking on, to have this be as well really flavorful. Oh no, I dropped a piece. I've gotten less ecstatic for myself with the concept of 5-second rule than when it goes to cooking something, simply because, I mean, first and foremost, when I cook for other people, I don't follow that at all. You know, they've had some really interesting research about that, but it's like, since COVID, I'm even more germaphobe. So, we're just going to clean up, and that is our prep. So again, we're going to grab a mixing bowl. God, I really have to organize something here. All sorts of stuff. This is just a serving for, 1 to 2 people, but of course you can multiply this by, of course, however many people you want to make this for. And you can infuse this in different ways. So if you don't have fruit slabs, it's not like you can't make this dish. You could use infused olive oil. You could use infused spices. You could use infused breadcrumbs. There's many, many different ways that you could actually go about infusing this, and we're just going about it with this because I love fruit slabs, and fruit slabs likes to hook me up with fruit slabs. So this is about the size bowl that you need, right? Because there's really not a lot of ingredients. You could probably even get away with a smaller bowl, given the fact that I have 2 people, being myself and myself. One for me to eat now, one for me to eat later. And so, again, all we're going to do is place these ingredients, except for the fruit slabs, which we are going to mince later, because the fruit slabs are going on top last minute, right when it is time to serve. And we're going to mix it all up with our spices. We're going to clean up, which we've already done, but we're going to put the olive oil onto our portobellos on the inside, on the outside. We're going to stuff them. Put our cheese, we're going to put them in here, and that's it. It's really, really, really simple. Got my little plate here, and we're ready to go. So this has been the Trannabis Kitchen pre-show for Season 2, Episode 5. Later, we are going to welcome Neil Lequia of the Full Spectrum here, and I'm super excited. So make sure that wherever you're watching this, you get right back here at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be here for 1 hour showing you how to make these and talking all about Neil's experience and the Full Spectrum. So I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching the Trannabis Kitchen pre-show. I'm Chef Trannabis, and I will see you very soon. Namaste.